I never imagined I'd be telling this story to strangers. Honestly, even now, writing it feels uncomfortable, not because of what happened, but because of how normal everything looked before it all fell apart. My name is Aaron. I'm 34. We lived in Plano, Texas, just outside Dallas. Quiet neighborhoods, decent schools, nothing flashy. The kind of place people move to when they want stability. My wife, Jenna, and I had been married for 5 years. Not the kind of marriage people post about every day, but solid. Predictable. We had routines. Sunday grocery runs. Friday takeout. Bills paid on time. Conversations about maybe having kids in a year or two. The kind of life where nothing feels urgent because nothing feels wrong. I worked in logistics management for a regional company. Long hours sometimes, but steady pay. I covered the mortgage, utilities, insurance, the big stuff. Jenna worked part-time in digital marketing and always talked about wanting to build something of her own someday. I supported that. Encouraged it, actually. When she started spending more time on her laptop at night, I didn't question it. She said she was freelancing, learning new skills, building a personal brand. That sounded reasonable. Proud, even. Then little things started changing. She got more protective of her phone, started locking the bathroom door when she showered, bought new lighting equipment she said was for client calls, opened a second bank account for business income. None of it felt alarming on its own. That's how these stories always start. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious. Just small shifts that you explain away because you trust the person next to you. The first real red flag came one night when I jokingly asked what she was working on so late. She snapped back, sharper than I'd ever heard her. Why do you always need to know what I'm doing? That stuck with me. Not because I wanted control, I didn't. But because in 5 years of marriage, curiosity had never been treated like suspicion before. I told myself she was stressed. I let it go. I kept paying the bills, kept showing up, kept believing we were on the same team. I had no idea that while I was funding the life we shared, Jenna was building a second one, quietly, deliberately. That didn't include me at all. And I definitely didn't know how I was going to find out. I didn't catch her cheating. I didn't walk in on anything. There was no dramatic moment where everything suddenly made sense. I found out by accident. And honestly, that made it worse. It was a Tuesday night. I remember that clearly because Tuesdays were boring. No plans, no distractions, just dinner, a little TV, and catching up on emails before bed. Jenna had already gone to sleep early, or at least that's what she said. She took her laptop with her and told me she had a headache. Around 10:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with a notification from our joint bank account. That wasn't unusual by itself. We had alerts set up for larger transactions. What was unusual was the source. It wasn't payroll. It wasn't a refund. It wasn't anything I recognized. The description was vague. Just a platform name I didn't immediately recognize and an amount just under $1,000. Not coming out of the account, going in. At first, I assumed it was a freelance payment. Jenna had mentioned clients paying inconsistently, sometimes in chunks. Still, something about it bothered me. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was the amount. Maybe it was the fact that she'd insisted on opening that separate account, but was somehow still routing money through ours. I opened the transaction details. That's when I saw the sender. I won't name the platform here, but if you've been on the internet for more than 5 minutes, you already know what it was. A subscription-based content site. One that isn't subtle about what it's for. I stared at my phone for a long time, telling myself I was misunderstanding it, that it had to be a coincidence. A similar name, a different kind of service. Anything but what my brain was already connecting. I didn't wake her up. I didn't confront her. I didn't even check her phone. I went to the guest bathroom, sat on the edge of the tub, and Googled the platform name. Every explanation I read made my chest tighten a little more. By the time I went back to bed, Jenna was asleep, facing away from me. Her laptop was closed on the nightstand. For the first time in years, I felt like I was lying next to someone I didn't actually know. The next morning, I checked the account again. Another payment. Smaller this time. Different sender ID. Same platform. That's when denial stopped being an option. Over the next few days, I noticed things I'd ignored before. The way she angled her screen away from me. The way she always wore headphones, even when she wasn't on a call. The sudden bursts of confidence mixed with defensiveness. She wasn't acting guilty. She was acting entitled. I didn't dig immediately. Not because I didn't want the truth, but because part of me was terrified of confirming it. There's a moment in situations like this where you still have the illusion of normalcy, and once it's gone, you don't get it back. But by Friday night, I couldn't pretend anymore. She left the house to clear her head around 9 p.m., which was new. I stayed behind, sitting in the living room with the TV on and my thoughts spiraling. When she was gone, I did something I'd never done before in our marriage. I opened her laptop. No password change. No extra security. Almost like she never imagined I'd look, or never cared if I did. Her browser was already open, and that's when I saw it. Not a rumor, not a suspicion, not a possibility. Her profile, her photos, her content dashboard, messages, subscriber numbers, earnings breakdowns. My wife wasn't experimenting. She wasn't thinking about it. She wasn't just starting. She'd been doing this for over a year. A year of secrets. A year of late nights. A year of building something that never once included me. And suddenly, every locked door, every defensive comment, every unexplained expense made perfect sense. I sat there in the quiet house, staring at the screen, realizing something that hurt more than the discovery itself. She didn't hide this because she was afraid of losing me. She hid it because she never felt I deserved to say. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry, not yet. It was because my brain wouldn't stop trying to reorganize 5 years of memories around this new truth. Every moment felt tainted now. Every work call. Every night she said she was exhausted. Every time she brushed off intimacy like it was an inconvenience. By morning, I made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to accuse. I wanted to hear how she explained it. Jenna came home late that night, close to midnight. She looked relaxed, almost upbeat, like someone who'd had a productive evening. She didn't notice me sitting at the kitchen table until she turned on the light. "You're still up?" she asked, casually, like nothing was wrong. I nodded and said her name. Just once. That alone made her pause. I told her I'd seen the transaction. I kept my voice calm, steady. I didn't say the platform name yet. I wanted to see how far denial would go. For a second, just a second, I thought she might lie. But instead, she sighed. Not nervously, not guiltily, just annoyed, like I'd interrupted her. "So," she said, dropping her bag on the counter. "You found out." "Found out. Not I'm sorry. Now we need to talk." Just that. I asked her how long. She didn't even hesitate. "About a year." I asked why she didn't tell me. That's when her tone changed. She crossed her arms and said, "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this." I hadn't reacted at all yet. She told me it wasn't cheating, that it was content, that it was her body and her choice. She said she wasn't meeting anyone in person, wasn't doing anything illegal, and wasn't hurting anyone. Then she said something that I still hear in my head. "This is my income, my independence." I didn't want to ask permission like I'm a child. I reminded her that we were married, that independence and secrecy weren't the same thing, that we shared a life, a home, finances. She laughed, actually laughed. "That's the problem," she said. "You see this as something that affects you. It doesn't." That's when I brought up the bills, the mortgage, the fact that I'd been covering nearly everything while she kept this money separate. Her expression hardened. "That was your choice," she said. "You wanted to provide. I never asked you to." I told her I felt betrayed. She told me I felt threatened. I told her trust mattered. She told me trust didn't mean control. Then she delivered the line that changed everything. "If you can't support an independent woman," she said, "maybe you shouldn't be married to one." I stared at her, realizing something painful and clarifying all at once. She wasn't asking for understanding. She was issuing terms, and the terms were simple. Accept this version of her, fully, silently, or remove yourself from her life? I asked her if she would stop. She shook her head without hesitation. I like who I am now, she said, and I'm not shrinking myself for anyone. That was the moment I understood the marriage I thought I was protecting no longer existed. Because you can't compromise with someone who's already decided you're optional. The room felt smaller after that. Not physically, emotionally. Like all the air had been sucked out and replaced with something heavy and unmovable. Jenna leaned against the counter, arms crossed, waiting. Not nervous, not apologetic. She looked confident, certain. She thought this conversation was over. I asked her one last question, quietly. So what happens to us? She shrugged. A literal shrug. We stay married. We live our lives. You just adjust. Adjust. Like I was reacting to a schedule change. Like this was a new hobby or a diet she'd picked up. Like secrecy and public exposure weren't opposite ends of the same betrayal. I told her that wasn't how marriage worked. She rolled her eyes and said something that made my stomach drop. Marriage doesn't mean ownership, Aaron. And honestly, if this is a deal breaker for you, maybe that says more about your insecurity than my choices. There it was. The word she'd been saving. Insecure. Not hurt. Not blindsided. Not betrayed. Insecure. She told me I should be proud of her. That other husbands would kill to have a wife this confident. That she was finally making real money on her own terms. That she didn't want to feel like she owed anyone explanations anymore. Then she said it. If you can't handle it, she added, you're free to leave. She didn't yell it. She didn't threaten me. She said it calmly, comfortably, like she was certain I wouldn't. Because from her perspective, why would I? I paid the mortgage. I paid the bills. I kept everything stable. I was predictable. She turned away, poured herself a glass of water, and started scrolling on her phone like the conversation had already been resolved. That's when something shifted in me. Not anger, not jealousy, clarity. I realized I had been framing this wrong the entire time. This wasn't about OnlyFans. It wasn't about independence. It wasn't even about sex. It was about replacement. She no longer needed partnership. She needed an audience. And I had quietly been demoted from husband to background support. I asked her one more thing. Do you want to be married to me? She didn't answer right away. That pause told me everything. Finally, she said, I don't want to give up who I'm becoming. She still didn't say yes. I nodded, stood up, and walked past her toward the bedroom. She called after me, confused now. What are you doing? I told her I was packing a bag. That's when her confidence cracked for the first time. She followed me into the room, asking if I was being serious, saying I was overreacting, telling me we could talk more later, that we didn't need to make decisions this dramatic. But I'd already made mine. Because when someone gives you an ultimatum they think you'll never take, sometimes the only way to keep your dignity is to take it. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I didn't beg. I packed enough clothes for a few days, grabbed my laptop, and zipped the bag shut. She stood there, stunned, asking where I thought I was going. I looked at her and said the calmest, truest thing I'd said all night. I'm not competing with strangers for a place in my own marriage. She didn't follow me to the door. She just stood there, holding her phone, watching me leave, like someone who just realized that confidence doesn't always protect you from consequences. I stayed with my brother the first night. He lived about 20 minutes away, still in Plano, in a small townhouse near his work. I didn't tell him everything right away. I just said Jenna and I were having problems and I needed a place to crash. He didn't push. He just handed me a spare key and told me to make myself comfortable. That night, lying on a couch that smelled like laundry detergent and old books, the shock finally wore off. And something unexpected replaced it. Relief. Not the happy kind. Not the triumphant kind. But the quiet relief you feel when you realize you're no longer pretending everything is fine. No more guessing what's being hidden. No more walking on eggshells. No more explaining away things that don't sit right in your chest. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. I think you're being extreme. You didn't even give me time to process. That message told me everything I needed to know. She still saw this as my reaction problem, not our trust problem. Over the next few days, the tone of her messages changed. First came irritation, then frustration, then confusion. She asked when I was coming back, said we needed to talk like adults, said she missed me, said she didn't think I'd actually leave. That last part stuck with me. She didn't think I'd leave. Because in her mind, independence meant freedom for her, not consequences for the marriage. I didn't reply right away, not out of spite, but because for the first time in years, I was actually thinking clearly. I started reviewing our finances. The mortgage, the accounts, the bills I'd been paying automatically without question. And that's when another uncomfortable realization hit me. I hadn't just been emotionally sidelined. I'd been financially enabling a life I wasn't allowed to have opinions about. I scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney that Friday, a woman named Karen who'd been practicing family law in Collin County for over 15 years. She listened quietly, asked practical questions, and didn't flinch once. When I finished explaining everything, she leaned back and said, "You're not wrong for leaving, but you need to protect yourself now." That sentence grounded me. We talked through options, separation, assets. What would happen if Jenna tried to frame this as me abandoning her? Karen advised me to document everything: messages, timelines, financial contributions. When I got back to my brother's place that evening, I finally responded to Jenna. I told her I wasn't coming back. Not unless we went to counseling. Not unless there was honesty. Not unless there were boundaries we both agreed on. Her reply came fast. "I'm not going to be shamed or controlled. If this is who you are now, then maybe we're just incompatible." There it was again. Independence framed as immunity. I read that message a few times, then set my phone down and realized something painful but necessary. She didn't lose me when I walked out the door. She lost me the moment she decided that partnership was optional. The next few weeks were quiet. Not peaceful. Quiet in that heavy, unfamiliar way where everything feels suspended. Jenna stopped texting after that last message. No apologies. No ultimatums. Just silence. And for the first time since I'd found her page, I realized something unsettling. She didn't chase me because she assumed I'd come back. I didn't. Instead, I focused on disentangling a life I'd built around someone who no longer saw me as part of the equation. I moved my paycheck into a separate account. I stopped paying anything that wasn't legally my responsibility. Mortgage, utilities, subscriptions, all documented, all handled through my lawyer. When Jenna finally reached out again, it wasn't emotional. It was practical. She asked how she was supposed to cover her share of the bills now. Said her income was inconsistent. Said this wasn't how she pictured things going. That's when it fully hit her. Independence sounds powerful until stability disappears. I told her everything would go through the lawyers from now on. I wasn't angry. I wasn't cruel. I was done negotiating my self-respect. A month later, we met once, in a mediation office in Frisco. Neutral ground. Fluorescent lights. No audience. No confidence performance. Just two people sitting across from each other, dividing a life that no longer fit. She looked different. Tired. Less certain. At one point, she said quietly, "I never thought you'd actually leave." I believed her, and I told her the truth. "I didn't leave because of what you were doing," I said. "I left because you didn't think I mattered enough to explain it." She didn't argue. The divorce finalized a few months later. Clean. No drama. No revenge. Just an ending. I moved into a small apartment outside Dallas. Nothing fancy. Quiet. Mine. The first night there, sitting on the floor with a takeout box and no furniture, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not happiness. Not victory. Peace. Looking back, the betrayal wasn't discovering my wife was an OnlyFans model. The betrayal was being told that love meant silence and support meant erasing myself. If someone asks you to accept something that hurts you and calls you insecure for feeling it, that's not empowerment. That's replacement. And walking away doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you finally chose yourself.